Hey everybody, welcome to a Friday video and happy opening day to Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
That's
in
right,
Disneyland.
and happy 100 years of Walt Disney Animation. So cool.
Today we're going to be kind of doing like a fast and loose kind of conversation.
Fast and loose.
We've talked about...
Just the way I like my conversations.
Easy.
Never mind.
Easy. I really don't want to have this video get flagged.
Oh, it won't. It won't. We're fine.
Anyways, we have done videos on licensing in consumer products.
Yes.
We have done videos on starting a business.
Mm-hmm.
Today we are going to be talking to those people that have started a business and are thinking about licensing and how that ties into and should tie into almost exclusively a customer acquisition strategy.
Ooh.
There are a lot of fun reasons to do licensing, but I would say, and I would argue, the right one is customer acquisition.
And I 1000% agree with that sentiment.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's jump into the first section that we're making up as we go along.
Yes.
The name of this section being section 1, what not to do, or the Danielle Nicole.
Girl. Really just...
So yeah, we're just jumping in with the daggers. So the slippery slope of licensing, to set this up, is that it is a great boost in sales because of the IP. The whole reason that you jump into something like this is because there's a lot of recognition already.
Yeah.
If it's got, we're gonna stick with Mickey Mouse. It's an easy one. People know who Mickey Mouse is. People don't know your brand. I think I've said this in almost every video that talks about licensing. You put Mickey on the thing, you put it on the shelf. I know Mickey, I buy the thing.
Yeah, and even terribly done licensing will still make you money.
Still generate sales.
I wish that weren't the case, but it is the case.
Because it's really, at the core of it, hinging on the affinity for that IP.
Yes.
So that great boost in sales, it can be very, very, what do you want to say? Just not distracting, but what do you call the sirens song that brings the ships to the wreckage?
A siren song.
A siren song, if you will.
Tempting?
Tempting.
Yeah.
It can be very tempting, and it seems like a phenomenal business because every time you release something with a character on it, boom, your sales go up. But it's very similar to having way too much of your sales coming from third-party retailers. You are now not a business without those third-party retailers. They now have control over what you do because you don't own those sales.
It is a slippery slope.
In the same way, if you over-rely on licensing at the cost of building your core brand, you will cease to be a brand and be really just a manufacturer of some kind of Mickey-related product. And if you ever try to go outside of that and say, look, it's the same thing, it's the same whatever you've come to know and love, but without Mickey on it, they're like, well, I wasn't showing up for Mickey. I wasn't showing up for you, I was showing up for Mickey. And that's what happened with Danielle Nicole. They started with...
Do you remember, first of all, do you even remember Danielle Nicole?
I know,
maybe
being in licensing,
this isn't
like,
your
I
world,
remember.
and maybe you don't actually even know this brand or this company.
So we'll throw up an image of their website for reference. But really, they started with bags. They were kind of like,
a bag company.
In the Disney space, they were really like right before Loungefly really blew up. So they started with the bags, they started to do licensing, they did well. They did a lot of licensing. They really put their brand development, if they didn't, it wasn't obvious to us, but it looked like from the outside they put their brand development on the back burner and really just went all in on Disney and mostly Disney being like who they were.
If you were shopping Disney merch, because I feel like that was really what they were doing, was mostly Disney, around like circa 2015, I would say, you probably saw these bags. They were, purses, and they were interesting cutout shapes of like, so it'd be like Snow White's head, and the bag would be cut in the shape of that with like a chain, so you hang it like on the side, and it would be like glittery, like really cool and unique looking bags. They really would stand out. They
were, you know, they were vinyl and like polypropylene, so they kind of were shiny and glossy, and they kind of looked like 50s like car seats, kind of.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's
kind
of this kind of material. But they really like lost their own identity. And when Loungefly came in, and I think of the small accessory kind of market, just ate that up. Like they kind of own that space in the Disney kind of accessory bag space. Danielle Nicole tried to fall back on its core brand, and
what we didn't know what that
I'm
was.
I'm gonna look it up now.
I don't know if they're even still in business.
We'll look it up, and if it is still in business, we'll throw it up on the screen. But that was.
Did they get bought out? Are they still?
They just, as far as we were concerned, they kind of faded into obscurity.
It really seems that way.
Another one that is doing something kind of the same, but is still kind of in the middle of it, is ColourPop.
Yes,
so
ColourPop.
We'll call this 1A. Don't do this, but if you're doing it, you better keep feeding it ColourPop.
Right. ColourPop obviously is still very big and large. And the thing is, they first started, the reason that anybody knew about ColourPop in the very early days of ColourPop, again, probably around the same time, like 2014, 13, something like that, they were the makers, they weren't even a brand, they were the makers of the Kylie lip kit.
Well, they were a lab.
They're a lab.
Spats.
They're a
Spats was the name of the lab.
This was their like house brand.
Yeah, it was ColourPop.
Basically. But they were small, they were virtually unknown until somebody figured out like, oh, this isn't just a dupe for the Kylie lip kit. This is the Kylie lip kit, and it is significantly cheaper. So everybody starts buying it from ColourPop because they made the Kylie lip kit, but it was branded for Kylie, and they then took the same product and without the branding and sold it on their own. And then people were like, oh, well, ColourPop has tons of stuff that they're making for other brands, and if you can figure that out, it's like a little mystery. You can get it so much cheaper, like eyebrow pencils and eyeshadows and like tons of options, tons of colors. They were a lab, so they could virtually make anything as much as they wanted. So it was super weird at first, when all of a sudden this brand that was kind of this like secret beauty insider kind of brand that you had to know and you had to only could order it on their site, they weren't like in other beauty shops, you found out, like, you see that they're doing licensing now, and I don't remember what their first license collection was that they came out with, but I remember seeing whatever it was and thinking, ColourPop is doing a licensed collection? That's weird. And I thought that was weird, and now that's all they do.
They have, the last time I checked on their site, they had a couple things that were just ColourPop branded, but they don't exist as a company outside of licensing. Now,
but they're chucking out licensed products like nobody's business.
I mean, this video is under the assumption that you have a brand that you would like to see grow, and you want to incorporate licensing as that customer acquisition strategy, and you don't want to dilute your brand. But if you're like, I just want to be like in the wings, and my brand just makes a Disney branded thing, and I don't want to work on my brand, I just want it to be like a Disney thing, you know, that works. That also is a thing.
That's true.
You just gotta. We just want to.
But that's a different business model.
Be sure that that we're not saying like, we're saying that from the perspective of growing a brand, this would not be the way to do it.
Like neither of those brands, I think, set out to be completely absorbed into licensing the way that they are.
Maybe.
I don't know though. I don't know. It's hard to say. But
they
like
are still
now,
a lab,
it's like
so they still do other work.
Yeah. That's true. But you think ColourPop and you just think of all the licensed collections they have. If you were to ask, like, what does a non-licensed ColourPop palette look like? What's their signature product? What do they do best?
It's like a cardboard palette.
Well, we don't really know, right?
Pastel color, if I had to give it like a wild guess.
But we don't really know because they've only been doing licensed releases so much, and so it kind of same with Danielle Nicole. Like, I don't know what it looked like before Disney, because Disney is the way I was introduced to Danielle Nicole.
And they didn't have
but
like a
I never
enough...
was converted into a normal Danielle Nicole customer to learn what their bags look like without the licensing on it and fall in love with the bag itself.
So
I wouldn't know.
This leads perfectly into point 2. Using this as a customer acquisition strategy, this is what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to have a strong brand to start with, or a strong identity to the brand, which goes back to our other video that talked about starting a business and starting an e-com business. The first step is always finding something that you are passionate about, finding something that you can tell a story about, or that has kind of real grounding in something that somebody's gonna give a damn about. Because if you don't have that, then you'd be looking to just do like the licensing, I don't have a brand, just put Mickey Mouse on it and push it out all day. But if you're doing the other way, you need to make sure you have that piece figured out first, because what's gonna happen when you do it correctly is that you're gonna take the IP that you are licensing, you're gonna take your brand's identity, and then you are going to marry them and come up with a unique expression of the two of them that only could have existed if that license collection came to be. And by doing something that is authentically you and authentically the brand, you will gain those customers, which is what you want, but at the same time, they are absorbing some of your brand. So when you capture that customer and you try to shoot them another email or retarget them in some other way after they've made their purchase, this outreach will not be completely foreign, because they're seeing some of that DNA in that outreach in the product that they have. That is not as easy to do and requires a lot more creative heavy lifting, so it is oft not done. But the normal cycle is that even with the big brands, they'll do some licensing, it'll make some great sales. Ultimately, the numbers don't work great, so they end up kind of getting out of it, and it was like a fun experiment for some time. But the people that can do it well and do it consistently are using it as that vehicle. And then, I mean, as an aside, you have to have a really good way to move that inventory quickly, because one of the biggest things with branded collections like this is like that newness. That newness really has, think of like Comic-Con or other types of ways that people will drop product and it'll release and there'll be a frenzy around it. That usually happens around intellectual property. That is your best friend when you're doing these, and it will be hot that first day. People are flipping them for 10 grand on Amazon, and a month later you have to slash your prices by 40% because it's not hot anymore. That's a separate thing. That's kind of moving. That's like a go-to-market strategy specifically for licensed collections. But as far as what the thing should be and what it should look like, that's your secret sauce. And that's, I think, just by doing that, you inherently have insulated yourself from everybody else that also has that character, because your unique interpretation of your brand and the IP is not going to be the same if another person does the exact same process as you. But if you put Mickey on a notebook and they put Mickey on a notebook, really just two notebooks with Mickey on it. If you're the
Danielle Nicole and Loungefly comes into play, then where are you going to be? Basically, that's what that cautionary tale really says. You have to have something that stands alone in order to keep your customers converting.
Yeah, or if you need to have enough of your own DNA in the product. And resist the urge to just put the IP on there, even though that will sell, but it burns the bridge to light the way, because you're not selling your product at that point. You're selling IP version of your product. They are not buying it because of any kind of brand value that you might have. Citizen is one of those big ones that I think unfortunately kind of falls into that space. A lot of their watches are fine. They're fine. They have enough money to throw around to be a corporate alliance sponsor with Disney, so you see them represented in parks and things like that. And when we recently went to D23 Expo and I saw their watches, they had one or two that I would genuinely say were a unique expression of the intellectual property and the chronologic, or what is it, chronology, the time, never mind. Okay, the history of watchmaking and what makes the Citizen watches special. There were 2 or 3 pieces that did that well, and those pieces were phenomenal. Those were some of the more expensive pieces, and I have a feeling I know why. But most of the pieces there were a normal watch and Buzz Lightyear's on the face of the watch, or one of the circles is a Captain America shield. Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That could have been a Timex. That could have been a Casio. That could have been a lot of things with the Captain America shield on the circle. The dial is a circle. The shield's a circle. Like, come on, guys. Too easy. There was nothing intrinsically Citizen to that besides just the name being on there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna if I can
a lot. I'm so sorry.
If I can find it, I'll throw it up here. One of them that I really liked was like this version of like an 80s watch that they had made before that was like an X-Wing fighter, and the dials kind of look like instrument dials, but they look like instrument dials that you'd find on the X-Wing fighter. Ooh, which I thought was really cool. Like, what a unique kind of like 70s, 80s style, the original movie coming out around that time, not using just like the logo on it. That I thought was awesome. Like, what a great, and if I got fed an ad after I bought that showed me Citizen's new 1970s digital quartz collection or something, I might be like, oh
yeah, they do it.
And if I was in the market for another timepiece, I might have swung over, and all of a sudden I've become a regular customer, or at least I'm in their I'm in their like funnels.
Their funnel, and that's also it too. Part of it is that if you are licensing and you're getting those customers to come in, you've got to have built out a good funnel to keep them back in, staying back in. They're not a one-time buy and leave.
We'll call this part 3, the funnels. Not the bees. That's what I thought. From Screen Crush. Never mind. Please continue. You were saying the funnels.
The funnels. The funnels are very important. So, I have seen this before in not only being a consumer of licensed goods, but also with the past work I've done with clients or other companies that I've worked for in the past. Where it can go, either way. Sometimes I see something licensed as a consumer, and I'm like, this is cool, right? It's a shirt, it's I don't know, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I like this, I'm buying it. Either in a store, I take it up to the register and I buy it, and I have the shirt, and I've never thought to myself, oh, I wonder what else these people make or whatever. Or even online, because I get an ad for it, or I see somebody else, like an influencer wearing it maybe or something, and I get like a link directly to the thing, I buy the thing, and then I never hear from them again. And that happens. And I'm happy with my purchase, but I'm not going to be a repeat buyer, and I probably won't even remember who made it, and I won't care. Some of these things can even be like memorabilia, because I know that there's like whole companies that make, little like kitschy proppy things for different licenses or whatever. And that's, but you don't even think about it, or t-shirts or whatever, right? So, so how do you get them to know more and to realize, oh, they do other stuff? So again, I think this also goes back partially, like Nick said in the last point, that had your DNA, your brand's DNA, right? So I thought of another good example of this, and that is Funko Pop. Funko Pop has every license ever imaginable. They carry things,
Funko
even
Pop.
If you think you're a pop culture nerd, you're gonna see Funko Pops that you're like, what is this? I've never heard of this character, this show, whatever. They have them all.
But and they're like at this end of the spectrum though, when it comes to like licensing companies. They are a company that exists
because of licensing. So this is interesting, because this isn't something like they already were making figurines unlicensed and then they started to get licenses. No. The product was made to be licensed. But because you still, even though we've never seen an unlicensed Funko Pop, you can tell me what a generic Funko Pop is. If I say, well, what's it look like?
Funko boy, there's the one that's like their mascot.
Yeah, you're like, oh, he has a big rectangle head and the giant black eyes, and then their bodies are tiny, and like you just know, the look of it, right? You buy one and you realize, because on their packaging even, it will show you get the other ones in the set, which is really smart. So that's one strategy. That the thing you have tells you what else you can get. But you realize like, oh, there are so many. I mean, we all know this now, but there was a point where we all learned that they do this, right?
I like that. I like that concept that you're saying, where when a company does it well, injects their DNA into the license, you still see the brand, even though there's another license very, very prominently being featured. Funko, I think, being that like edge case of them doing it phenomenally, even for a brand that didn't need to. They don't exist to do anything other than license, but they needed to make they did make sure that their brand DNA still came through. So you look at a Funko and you look at another collectible,
and people have tried to knock them off their high horse. There have been other collectibles that are like squishy ones, or they're like little hard round dudes that come in their own boxes. I don't even remember what they're called, because I see them and I'm like, this is a knockoff Funko Pop, and it's not as cute and it's not as interesting looking.
So let's get back to funnels. We were talking about
funnels. So yes. So also what's interesting about Funko Pop, I will add, is that they have now pivoted a lot beyond just the standard collectible. You can get them in big size, you can get them in mini size, you can get games, you can get merchandise like shirts and hats, you can get cereal. I don't know if they still make the cereal, but they did at one time have cereal. They're trying a lot of things. I bet if they haven't already, they're gonna get into media. There's gonna be kind of like
they did.
I don't know if they have or not. It's like, I know Lego obviously has gotten into media, and there's like Lego little shorts of movies and things for kids,
there are
which
tons
is
of Lego.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Funko also kind of goes that way. But anyway, that's part of their funnel as well, right? That you buy into their whole shtick, and then you want to get other things that aren't even collectibles. You want to try the cereal, you want to watch the show, you want to get a t-shirt, you want to play a game, right? All of this. So that's part of it. You can have adjacent products that are going to be good for people. So somebody buys your Mickey Mouse shirt, and suddenly now they get the shirt, and they already know, because it's either a flyer in the package when they order it from your online store, it's part of the email campaign they get back, whatever, or it's even right there on the site when they are shopping that there's suggested products. It could be all three of those things, so you really like drum it in. But you're saying like, you like this? Look what else we do. And in everything that they see and touch and interact with immediately after purchasing or as purchasing, it needs to be chock full of your branding, your brand voice, your brand colors, everything. Something that is undeniable who you are and what you do. This is not the time for a generic checkout page and all of that nonsense. You need something custom, and you need something that really helps people go, oh, I get it. Oh, they do this. Oh, this is cool. I found a new brand I like.
Spirit Jersey is another one.
Oh, yeah, Spirit Jersey.
Where that stupid line.
But you know it.
But if you were to take all the thing away and show me two pullovers, I'd be like, Spirit Jersey. Again, it's simple. It's just,
And Spirit Jerseys existed a long time because people in the 90s were wearing those, but they weren't licensed. They were for like their teams.
But it's still it still has enough. If they were to stop licensing tomorrow and come out with a core line that was inspired by this, that, and the other, you'd see the stripe, the scene thing, and you'd kind of go like, oh, these were there'd be enough. You wouldn't go like, the heck is this?
But that also speaks volumes to their product development, because they could have chosen to do licensing in a way that they just made different shirts, different sweatshirts, whatever, and abandoned the structure of their thing in order to just produce garments that have these licenses to get more out there. But they don't do that. And that's good, because they didn't lose sight of that little thing, that DNA that makes you know who they are. So when we start to see brands sacrifice that in order to produce more licensed goods, that's where they lose a sense of self. That's where customers don't even recognize that it was an actual brand who made it and not the license holder themselves who made it. And it gets all like murky, wishy-washy, and that's a hard game to play.
Yes. Last part 4, we're going to call, so I'm in business and I want to license. What now? I've seen some people talking online that there's like brokers that know companies. Like there's brokers that know like, oh, Universal and all these things. I wouldn't go with them. 1, because they're eating into your margin. And 2, if you have a strong brand voice and you have an awesome product, and the value proposition you're bringing to the table is a good one, it doesn't matter who you are or how big or how small. It's an opportunity for the IP holder to have their product or their IP showcased in one more place. It's very low risk for them relatively. So there's not a scenario where they're like, oh, but you didn't come referred from so and so, so like get away. So I would stay away from brokers that are immediately trying to, unless it's like a really tough find and there's really like no other way to like get to that person. A great way to do this is conventions. We talked about conventions. True. Licensing Expo. It's in June this year. I'm gonna go.
We should go.
So we should go.
Okay, we'll be there. We decided right now we'll be there.
We'll be there.
Hang out with us in Vegas.
Woohoo!
Really though.
Yeah, we will be there.
But we went last year.
Yeah. We go for all of our clients that also do licensing as well, and we take meetings. But the best thing about Licensing Expo is that when you register to go, I think like a couple months before the show, they open up a portal online that has everybody that has a booth there. Every IP from like Coca-Cola to Betty Boop to like Universal and Disney down to like
wild.
The comics that you've never heard of. They have a booth there.
It's fun.
And the whole, the whole portal and the whole reason for that being is to matchmake. So you send out requests through the portal saying, hey, this is what I do. This is what I want to, try to get to. And I want to do X, Y, and Z. I'd love to, if you'd want to sit down. 9 times out of 10, they're at a convention. You're not getting them in their normal kind of cycles of life, trying to get some time on their calendar. They're not doing much else but being there and taking meetings. Mm-hmm. So there's a good chance. When we used to go back in the day, I would book a meeting with anybody who would book a meeting with me, and it like relatively matched up, and there might be an opportunity, even if there wasn't an immediate like through line, just to start building a network. And I have gotten referrals and met other people because it is a relatively small community where somebody goes, well, you don't know me, but you met with so-and-so and they had such a great impression and said that you were working on X, Y, and Z that was phenomenal, and I thought to reach out to you. And I've had, stuff kind of come around like that because of it. You're not using a broker. You're not using anybody. This is an opportunity to go and you're talking right with them, and you have sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes to sit at a table and give them your pitch.
Yeah, be prepared though. You must be prepared.
Oh, of course, be prepared. But
you're not. You gotta have your numbers. You gotta have your plan. You've gotta have examples.
But I would say, like in normal life, a lot of the barriers are just kind of getting into the room. And a licensing show is a place where you're already in the room. Yeah. So do not go.
And all the players, big and small, are there.
But I will say a lot of the people, most of the people, will not take meetings that you trying to book at the show. Like if you walk up to the booth and go like, hi, I'd like to meet with somebody, 9 times out of 10, they're all booked. That's why that portal ahead of time is so important. Reaching out, showing people your website, exchanging information, setting up a time in the calendar is so important. Yeah. But it is such a great networking opportunity. And then there are events that happen after hours because it's in Vegas. So even if you go, well, I didn't have a meeting with you, but then we met at a party and we were both talking about Disney and how much we think that their so-and-so could be doing this and that, and you're like, give me your card. Oh, you're in LA, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, or they're like, you here tomorrow? Let's do lunch,
There's phenomenal networking, and it's a space where the playing field is very much leveled with big players and small players as far as getting to the room where it happens. And then for you, then it's on you to like to sell it and do it.
I will also say,
yeah,
one thing I have learned in my experience with licensing, and Nick will probably agree with me on this, is that I have seen deals or like collaborations that would seem perfect not happen for one reason or another. They decide not to give it to you. And then I have seen weird and wacky things where like it's a big name license and a tiny name company, and they're like, what the heck, let's do it. And they do. And you're like, why? How did they manage this? I've seen like, you know, it's really...
don't just think, well, I need to be super big to do this or that. Or
no.
They won't talk to me. No. Go request a meeting through the portal with the person that handles licensing at Coca-Cola. Go request Universal. Go request whoever it is you want to talk to.
Yes.
Or if you have an idea of that and you need somebody to kind of help out and not help broker, but like maybe help through some of the paces, reach out to us, because we do also do that.
Yes.
And yes, I just said don't hire brokers, but
that's not exactly what
we
this
don't.
is.
It's not necessarily the same thing, but we definitely are happy to provide our experiences so that you can kind of shortcut some of that learning curve.
Yeah.
But
don't be afraid. Like, don't think like, oh, they're not going to say yes to me. You really never know. They might take a chance on you. Or don't get discouraged if something that you think should work out, they give you a big fat no. Like, there's another opportunity around the corner if this is really what you're going for. Like,
I've gotten blown off so many times, and then we do some other smaller project, and that makes the rounds, and then all of a sudden
they come back and they're like,
you're like, hey, I'm so and so from that project, and they're like, oh, hi. And it's a small community, so kind of going there and kind of letting everybody know that you're there and that you're not a spammy brand.
No, that you're intentional about entering into the licensing world, and you're there to stay. You're there to do multiple things. Like,
I mean, as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about licensing and storytelling. So
crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. Okay. I think that's the end of our video.
Yeah, I think so.
It was a good video.
I always love to talk about, and if you haven't yet watched it, we have like an hour-long video on our channel all about licensing, where we go really, really in depth, even on some of the things we talked about here. We talk about the process,
but
like
we talk
break it down.
Yeah, we talk more about like the nitty-gritty points. So if this is something that interests you, that you want to start doing and looking at for your business, I will put a link for that video up here. And
we give some like critiques of real world examples of licensing, everything like that. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. Yes.
Yeah, just to kind of like get your feet wet in it, so that when you're approaching these people, you feel like you have at least an idea of what you're asking for. Because if they go say, well, what's the minimum guarantee? Well, like what kind of assortment? What royalty rate are we looking at? You at least kind of have an idea of what they're talking about, and you're not coming into it blind.
Yeah.
So check out that video.
Totally. That's our funnel. There it is. Funnel. See? Funnel. You're here. I'm like, now you're here. Now go here. Oh, you did that? Okay.
Hey, check out our merch store.
Hit that bell. Like and subscribe.
I know.
Funnel.
Can you believe that so many things have said, like, just telling people to subscribe gets you more subscribers, which sounds crazy.
Did it work? Did it work?
Did it work?
When we said it,
We're waiting.
Did you do it?
We're waiting.
Did you do it yet? We'll know.
We'll know. You think we won't?
We'll know.
Anyways, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. If we didn't cover anything, if you wanted to go into more detail, again, reach out. We love to chat about these things.
Yeah.
Check out our link below for the merch store, where we have a really fun Disney adult shirt, because other last video from here where I talk about how being a Disney adult is a good thing, because it doesn't mean what you think it means. So watch that one too, and check out that funny shirt. Also, Jené's don't forget to like and subscribe Tombstone shirt.
Yes.
Is hilarious, and I can't wait for it to arrive, because I've been wanting to wear that for a long time. So we'll see everybody next week, and until then, it's business as usual. Bye.